in the marketing world and you're looking for inspiration, or you're a business leader who wants to understand what good marketing looks like. You're busy. You don't have time to sit around listening to a rambling 3-hour podcast. We get it. This is the Remarkable Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the marketing rock stars that deliver truly remarkable marketing. And you'll hear short interviews with marketing execs who share stories about the best marketing they've ever done, how it delivered a huge impact, and how they overcame all the challenges to make it happen. If you aspire to be remarkable, you'll walk away with ideas on how to do truly epic marketing, getting right to the content of what you need for busy professionals. This is the Remarkable Marketing Podcast. Now your host, Eric Eden.
All right. Welcome to the Remarkable Marketing Podcast. Our guest today is James I. Bond. He is the author of the amazing book, Brain Glue. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. Welcome to the show, James.
Oh, thanks for having me, Eric. Nice to be here. I love your podcast.
Thank you. And so I know from the name James Bond, we know you're a spy, but what does the I stand for?
Ian. I was born after the books and before the movies. So I think my parents had a sense of humor. What can I say?
Well, fun fact, my middle name is James. So you're in good company here. So I wanted to have you on the show because your book is all about how people can have massive success if they have the right name for their company and their products, or if they don't have the right name, they can go out of business, be bankrupt. It's almost that extreme. And you have some stories about this, but it's almost like the wide world of sports, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And, coming up with a name is a very emotional topic in my experience, both for company names and product names. My first job out of college was working for the original .com domain registry. And so I had a front seat when there was less than 100,000 .com names out there of watching people come up with names and how they struggled around it. And there was a lot of emotion and there was disputes and fights. No, that's my name. And it really brought home for me at the very beginning of my career that brands and names are very emotional for people. And with your book, what you really bring out is that having the right name, it makes all the difference in the world about success or failure. So I wanted to sort of jump in that, and maybe we can start by, can you share with us a couple stories of people who have had massive success just because of their name? Because initially I was like, is that really the case?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And I never realized how much the name of a book or a product can have such a radical impact on making things go from like a small number to suddenly become blockbuster and the person becomes wealthy, actually a billionaire too. I'll give you some examples. So there's a mom and son living in Utah, and they watch Shark Tank. A lot of people watch Shark Tank and love Shark Tank, and the whole idea of being able to invent something, make a whole bunch of money and get on Shark Tank, and then they invest and you suddenly become a multimillionaire. And so they're thinking like, what would be a really good product? And the mom was constipated. She would have a real constipation problem. And so her doctor said, what you really need to do is when you're on the toilet, you need to raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the ground. And it really changes the shape of your body and makes it much easier to go to the bathroom. So they did that, and they recognized, wow, this really works. And a lot of people can really benefit from this. And this might be a good product that we can be successful and get on Shark Tank. But what are we going to name the product? Well, it's a toilet stool. Do we want to call it the toilet stool? I don't think so. It's not really a good name, toilet stool. I think people hear that and they kind of roll their eyes like, oh. So they're thinking, what's another word for toilet? Potty. Oh, potty. And I'm kind of squatting. Squatty Potty. Let's call it the Squatty Potty. Squatty Potty took off like gangbusters. This is a mom and her son with no business experience, and they reached $100 million of sales. $100 million of sales because of the name. I mean, once they had money coming in, they couldn't believe how much money was coming in. They could spend more money on advertising and everything else. But in the beginning, they were just selling it online, and its sales exploded. When they got on Shark Tank, by the way, that's what happened too, is the investors stood in line wanting to invest in them. So there's just lots of really good examples. Famous Amos cookies, okay? I mean, Famous Amos, he didn't have a lot of money, Wally Amos. But, he started Famous Amos and it resonated. Now, they're good cookies, but just because they're good cookies doesn't mean people are going to buy it. I love to say brain glue is like a naked man running through your backyard. You're looking like, whoa, look at that guy. What should he say? It gets your attention. Well, that's what you want, is you want to stand out from the crowd. So how about Rocky Road ice cream? So Rocky Road ice cream was invented by the Dreyer's ice cream back in the Great Depression. And so it uses 3 brain glue tools. The first one is it uses a metaphor. Because I'll tell you something about Rocky Road. You open up Rocky Road, and guess what they have inside it? Rocks. No, there's no rocks in Rocky Road. It's bumpy like a Rocky Road. It's chocolate ice cream with nuts and marshmallows. It was invented back in the days when they had chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream. Those are the only ice creams. And they decided to mix up nuts and marshmallows with it also. And they thought, wow, it would be really great, but let's come up with a really cool name. They actually stole the name from someone else, but that's a whole other story. And they came up with Rocky Road. So Rocky Road is bumpy. When you open it up, it's bumpy like a rocky road. That's the first brain glue tool it uses. The second one is it uses alliteration, the repetition of sound. Rocky Road. And I suddenly realized how many people who are famous and how many products that are famous use alliteration, the repetition of sound. Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok. You think if TikTok was called the Chinese social media platform, it would be as successful as TikTok? One of my daughters, my youngest daughter, my oldest ones are in their 30s, but my youngest daughter, I said, yeah, TikTok is a Chinese government platform. She said, no, it's not Chinese at all. I said, you don't understand, it's Chinese TikTok. I said, no. She did research and went like, oh yeah, you're right. Marilyn Monroe. Chevy Chase, when you have a repeating sound, it works. So Rocky Road ice cream has rocky, so it has a metaphor, Rocky Road. It's not really rocky. It uses alliteration, the repetition of sound, Rocky Road. The third thing it uses, which is a brain glue tool, is humor. Now, Rocky Road was invented during the Great Depression, and the nickname for the Great Depression was Rocky Road. And so their concept was, we're all on a rocky road anyway. We might as well have Rocky Road ice cream. Kind of makes people laugh. Laughers are buyers. I have 2 friends who are in the top 100 attorneys in the country. And one of them is in the top 10. I'm not allowed to say his name because I don't want he doesn't want people to know the trick that he uses. But he realized this: if I can make the judge and or the jury laugh, they like me more and they actually root for me in trial. So there are a lot of people who have trials that they believe are unwinnable, and they give it over to him. He doesn't win everyone, but he wins a lot of these that are unwinnable by other attorneys. And in a large part, it's because he makes people laugh. If you can make people laugh, they tend to be much more connected to you. So that's it. So Carrie Smith started a manufacturing company, a small manufacturing company, and he made pretty good money. And so he had a friend who had a company that sells really huge fans for farms. In a barn, you wouldn't put air conditioning in a barn with cows and horses. You put a big fan inside there, okay? And so he bought the company, and it's a fan company making really big fans. And he was like, as time went on, he was marketing it as, I think it was John's Fans or something like that. And he thought, people don't understand how big these fans are. These are big ass fans. And so he decided to run an ad, big ass fans, and sales exploded. And he went, wait, maybe I should change the name of the company to Big Ass Fans. Okay. He has a great logo. He has a donkey's butt facing you, and then his face is off in the distance turned looking at you, but a donkey's butt, it's an ass's ass. Anyway, but sales exploded. And in fact, one of the things that happened with Big Ass Fans, he made so much money from it, he started adding other products. And then he realized that these other products are diverting him from focusing just on fans. So he decided to drop all the other products and he just focused on the Big Ass Fans. Big Ass Fans became so massively successful that after 15 years, people sell their businesses in time or whatever else, or pass it on to family. After 15 years, if you sell your business, it'd be nice if you make a few $1 million, whatever, you know. I have a friend that made 30 million. That's not bad. Carrie Smith, after 15 years, he sold big ass fans. Guess how much he got? $500 million. They use fans in warehouses, and you know, I mean, it's because his fans are really huge. But it became successful because he used the name Big Ass Fans. So you're starting a hamburger place, okay, and you're going to compete with McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, okay. I mean, they spend tens of millions of dollars and more on advertising. And you're a family. You don't have enough money to have an eat-in restaurant, but maybe a takeout restaurant would be really cool. You know, a small thing, and people will drive through. You know, you don't have money to spend on advertising, or a lot of money on advertising, but you can get a location, a really good, you know, on a good street that has lots of traffic, but you need a big sign, right? So what's a good name that they can come up with? How about In-N-Out Burgers? That uses something called chiasmus. Yeah, exactly. And in Western United States, you know, In-N-Out also means sex, right? I mean, and grabs your attention. You're driving down the street. I remember driving down the street and we're looking at it and saying, In-N-Out Burgers? What? That means In-N-Out, you're going to go drive through. But the name resonated so much that sales exploded like gangbusters. And a family business is family owned. They compete with McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's and all that stuff and do fantastic. They still have, we see here, you know, in our neighborhood, we have 2 different ones, and both of them almost always have lines of cars going through them. I mean, people love going through In-N-Out Burgers. I mean, you have to have a good product, but just because you have a good product doesn't mean you're going to get lots of people coming to, you know, buying your product or coming to your business, whatever it is. So how would you like to invent a product, have your biggest competitor or somebody you dislike steal it from you, and they make a fortune while you starve to death? Would that be fun? Come on, everybody. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Not. Okay. So here's a story. And it's funny because the guy that invented it died this week. And they pretend he invented this, but he didn't because the name wasn't the same. So Post Cereals competes with Kellogg's cereals. Okay. And the head of Post Cereals, you know, and trying to compete with Kellogg's, they said, well, we need to come up with a product that would just, you know, be a blockbuster of a product. And so they came up with this idea of this cake, you know, a sort of rectangular little cake that has jelly inside it. It has strawberries, blueberries, raspberry jelly inside it. You put it inside your toaster, and when it comes out of the toaster, it's nice and warm. You got this warm cake you're eating. And he was thinking, the owner of the company said, who came up with it, is, why don't we call it Country Squares? That'd be a great product, Country Squares. He was so excited about this product that they invented that 3 months before they launched it, he promoted it to the media. It's a mistake when your competitors get to see your promotions, okay? He promoted it to the media. Country Squares, you put it in your toaster, it comes up, and you get this warm cake. It's fantastic. And the head of Kellogg said, oh my goodness, he got his people in the company to figure out how to invent this product. You know, a little cake that goes inside the toaster. But he said, we also need a powerful name. What's the name going to be? And he was thinking, well, it pops out of the toaster. So why don't we call it Pop Something? Okay. That uses a sense elevation in brain glue. Okay. You got to elevate the sense. And pop is part of it. It pops out of the toaster. So let's have pop. And then back then, Andy Warhol was really famous, a pop artist. So pop art is anchored inside our brain. We've heard pop art, so we go pop art. Okay, I get it. And so he said, why don't we call it Pop Tarts? He launched it 1 week before Country Squares got launched, of course. He's a competitor, right? 1 week before Country Squares got launched, he launched Pop Tarts. Pop Tarts exploded in sales, so much so that they ran out of product. He never even realized how many people were going to buy Pop Tarts. He ran ads in magazines and newspapers saying, apology, I am so sorry that we ran out of product, but just hang on, we'll have it, it'll be coming up soon. Almost nobody bought Country Squares. They waited for Pop-Tarts to become available. When Pop-Tarts became available, it became the largest selling product that Kellogg's had. And within 6 months, Post stopped selling Country Squares because no one was buying it. Can you imagine? Someone steals your idea and they can make a fortune and get rich, and you have to dump it and figure out something else. But that's
what was the key about the name Pop-Tarts? what was the brain glue aspect of that name that drove it for versus Country Squares?
So there are two tools that Pop-Tarts use, okay? Pop, which is sense elevation. I'm old enough to remember plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is, Alka-Seltzer, okay? Alka-Seltzer actually developed the slogan because they realized that to make people feel better if you have an upset stomach, you actually have to have two Alka-Seltzers, not one. One is not enough. And so they came up with the slogan, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. And it's creating sense elevation. It's like, oh, wow, that's a sense I never expected. There's the song Smells Like Teen Spirit. Ew, what does Teen Spirit smell like? By Kurt Cobain. It's a brilliant song, one of my favorites, of most people's favorites of all time. Fabulous song. But the name Smells Like Teen Spirit, like, whoa, ugh, what does Teen Spirit smell like? But it gets your attention, it wakes you up, okay? I mean, there's just so many. So he's using pop because it pops out of the toaster. That's the first tool he used, okay? Pops out of the toaster. So when you get it, you know it's going to pop out of the toaster. You already understand how it works. The second thing he used is something called anchoring, where he took something that already is in our brain. And I love this. Let me give you an example of somebody who used anchoring, okay? I'll give you a few examples. So you're creating a dandruff shampoo. It's really a fabulous dandruff shampoo. What's a good name? So let me think about it. It helps, Head and Shoulders, right? Well, hang on a second. Back then, I think still today, but back then, little kids were taught the phrase, I can't do it even, I'm old, Head and Shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. They knew that was embedded in everybody's brain. So let's use that. Call it Head and Shoulders. People go, Head and Shoulders. Oh, yeah, well, we don't even realize it, but it's embedded inside the brain. Here's a really good example of somebody else that used anchoring. Okay, you're taking something that already exists. Well, I'll give you two examples. President Ronald Reagan wanted to develop a missile defense system that would, that was like in space that would shoot down missiles in case anybody fired missiles at America. But it was right after the Vietnam War. And people were not, anything that had to do with war, they were not interested in it. So if he was going to say, well, we want to launch a missile defense system, then they would have had protesters and everything else. Guess what was really, really popular? It had just launched back then. The movie Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars. So he came up with this idea of anchoring. Why don't I take Star Wars and attach it to the missile defense system? And we call it, so we're launching the Star Wars missile defense system. People were like, wow, that's cool. Yeah, you're going to have Star Wars in space. And suddenly almost nobody protested it, even though it was right after the Vietnam War, because they thought, this is cool. He anchored it. So I record shows on the History Channel sometimes, and they had a show on Bobby Flay. So who the heck's Bobby Flay? Well, he's a chef. I didn't know this. My wife knew this, okay? In the show, Bobby Flay, in the biography of Bobby Flay, it's telling you what the name of his TV show was, okay? Talk about anchoring. So he's grilling. He's teaching people how to grill. So what sounds like grill? Girl. Boy Meets Girl. Let's make the show Boy Meets Grill. He made the name of the show Boy Meets Grill, and suddenly it took off like gangbusters, okay? And in the show, they're talking about another chef, Jamie Oliver. He's the naked chef. The naked chef. I know this guy who's an advertising coach. He coaches advertising people with advertising agencies, and his name is David Baer, B-A-E-R. And I said, David, I got the perfect name for your business. Bare Naked Advertising. He has a partner. His partner loves that. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Come on, Bare Naked Advertising. People will remember your name. It really works. I mean, when you start to understand this, it's amazing. So here's one. Bob Parsons started a business, an online service that helps people get the URLs for their websites, okay? And to set up a website or a web page, okay? And he called it Joe Max Technologies. I think he lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a street name near him, Joe Max Avenue or something like that. So he came up with the name Joe Max Technologies. People started signing up for his service. They loved the service, but almost nobody was buying it. Nobody was signing up. And he went like, maybe the problem is Joe Max Technologies is people don't know, the name is not really making people want to buy it. So he said, let's come up with a name. Now he knows alliteration, the repetition of sound, like Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok, and all that stuff. And so he was thinking, let's come up with a fun name that's like alliteration and everything else. that helps people understand enough or love this enough that they want to buy our service. And so his guys were thinking about it, and they said, well, how about Big Daddy? Big Daddy? Okay, but that was taken, of course. So he said, let's call it GoDaddy. GoDaddy exploded. It's a multi-billion-dollar company now. It went from zero to a multi-billion-dollar company. You know, you think if it was called Jomex Technologies, it would be as successful as GoDaddy?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, so people start. So I met John Gray, and John Gray was telling me about his book. He wrote a book called Men, Women, and Relationships. People loved the book. They said, this is the most powerful relationship book I've ever read. It's incredible. But he couldn't get people to buy it. Men, Women, and Relationships. It's a great book. I'm telling you what it is. It's about, a man-woman relationship, but almost nobody was buying it. And then he got this crazy idea. What if I call it Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? Because men are really kind of from a different planet sometimes, and women think that. And sales exploded. He used a metaphor. And absolutely, he changed the text just a little bit so that he would refer to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus throughout the book. But technically, it's the same book. Okay, Men, Women, and Relationships. He went from 20,000 books sold to 50 million books sold, all because he changed the title. It's like, what? I remember being in a bookstore, and this is like brain glue is like a naked guy running through your backyard. You go like, whoa, what's that? What? Okay. And it's like, I remember being in a bookstore. I'm going, okay, book. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Okay, book. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? What the hell is that? And picked it up, started looking at it. By the way, you want to get somebody to buy your product. If it's physical, get them to pick it up first. There's a good chance they'll buy it. I started looking through it. Oh, this is really cool. I ended up buying the book. All because he changed the name. It's amazing when you understand how people change the name of a product or service. It takes off like gangbusters. Now, it's not just the name, also the description of the product too. A lot of people don't want to change the name, but the name or the description could catapult your product or service like gangbusters. I love saying this because there's trigger words. And I've got a lot of trigger words. So I'll give you some of them. Ass, like big ass fans, okay? If you call it big fans, you think it would be as successful as big ass fans? Breathless. Smirnoff leaves you breathless, okay? Now, what they're really saying is you can get drunk, but nobody's going to smell that you got booze on your thing. But they came up with the phrase breathless. How about vomit? I'd give this for a finance company. I was teaching them. They would do an analysis of somebody's insurance policy, let's say, okay? And they would recognize all kinds of problems on the insurance policy. So I was training them, and they had trouble doing it because they laughed. They said, that's really good, but sometimes we get an idea, but we think that's a little too much to try on people. So I had to go with them on several presentations, and we said, I did an analysis of your insurance policy. I don't want you to vomit, but have you seen this thing? The word vomit is like, what? 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 It's let me give you a good example of how trigger words get your brain. So I'm working on my computer. I got a TV next to my computer. I had it on, and they had a commercial for Blue Emu, which is anti-arthritis cream. It's really good. It's really amazing stuff. They had Johnny Bench, a famous baseball player who's in the Hall of Fame, who's talking about it. And he's talking about Blue Emu. I'm doing work. I don't care about Blue Emu, Then he says, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. What did he just say? It works fast and you won't stink? What? And from that point forward, he had my attention. I'm listening to that commercial closely. It works fast and you won't, and as he talks through it. I mean, it's just really powerful. How about for dummies? Would you call your client or prospect dummies? You guys are dummies. I got a book for you. I'm calling it For Dummies. I mean, you'd never think of that, and yet it became a blockbuster series. He sold it for over $50 million. I love this one. How'd you like to hear about a kid who dropped out of high school, had almost no money, borrowed some money from his dad, and became a billionaire with the help of one word? Okay? What could the word be? Let me think about it, okay? So what do Richard Branson, Madonna, and olive oil have in common? Virgin!
Indeed.
Virgin olive oil, okay? Like a virgin, touched for the very first time. That became the blockbuster song for Madonna. She had other songs, but that became the blockbuster song. And Richard Branson, he borrowed money from his dad, and he started a magazine for musicians. And he became, pretty successful. So he decided to start a record company. And he thought, I need a really cool name that people are going to remember, they're going to notice it. Why don't I call it Virgin Records? He ended up getting the Rolling Stones as a client and all these other guys as clients. He realized Virgin, that word is really powerful. So he created all these other words, Virgin Business, Virgin Construction Company, Virgin Hotels. I was talking to somebody who was telling me that, Virgin Hotels are all over Texas. Oh, wow. It's his hotels. He's got Virgin Airlines, Virgin Galactic, because he recognized that word wakes people up. So they go, it's like, brain glue, works fast and you won't stink, What? Virgin, what? How about if you're creating a play that's going to go on or off Broadway, and it's about women's rights and women's struggles? Should I call it women's rights or women's struggles? Why don't I call it the Vagina Monologues? Vagina Monologues became such a blockbuster for Eve Ensler that even the HBO is doing a special on the Vagina Monologues. Does that get your attention? I'm from Canada. I'm from Montreal originally. I had an advertising agency in Montreal. And when I was a young kid, all us kids laughed when we heard of a city in Saskatchewan called Regina, Saskatchewan. Now, why did we laugh? Because Regina sounds just like vagina, okay? So let's say you're running advertising for Regina, Saskatchewan, okay? What would your advertising be? These guys ran an ad for 3 years. It became a blockbuster. They tripled tourism. They couldn't believe how powerful it was. And then eventually they said, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to offend people, so we're going to change our but they have T-shirts. They have bumper stickers, car bumper stickers with this. So what would you come up with if you were doing the promotion for Regina, Saskatchewan, okay? Guess what they did? Regina, it rhymes with fun, okay? What a slogan. It took off like so much so that Madonna and Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones would actually tell that to their audiences of thousands of people that showed up to hear them play rock and roll music. Regina, it rhymes with fun. I mean, really?
Let me ask you, so there's a lot of science here. Words matter, right? So there's a lot of science in these great examples that you've given about how people came up with these names. And that's really what you cover in your book is the science of the emotional reaction by the right side of the brain to these words. So I think everyone, because there is a lot to it, you make it sound so simple in telling these success stories, but there's probably a lot of science to it, and people should read your whole book. But to whet their appetite, what would you say when you're talking about the science of doing this and brain glue?
Absolutely. There are 14 tools that I discovered, okay? And this is one of the things. Now, I'm throwing a lot at you because there's so many that, but the book takes them one at a time, and they're short. That's what people love about this is it's good, but it's short. So it takes one tool. I'm going to give you a couple of tools, okay? I mean, I gave you a bunch, but I'll give you some, and I'll show you how this works. But when you understand how the tool works, you understand how it sticks to the brain like glue. Certain things stick to the brain like glue. So let me give you an example. I figured this out because I ran an ad in Montreal. I worked my way up. I started in Montreal. I live in Southern California now. I've lived here for 37 years. But in Montreal, I started an advertising agency. And I won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Avon Cosmetics, stuff like that. Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And then I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. I say logical because this is emotional selling, not logical. When I saw the ad that won, it used a metaphor, okay? And I didn't know it was a metaphor back then. I didn't know what it was. All I knew is it was infinitely more powerful than my ad. But it was a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain. And then cracking the shell and dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan and saying, this is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Okay? Now, back then, I didn't understand it. But between that and John Gray telling me about his book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I started to realize that's a metaphor. These people are using a metaphor, okay? So let me give you an example of a metaphor in action, okay? For all of you out there, for you, Eric, and for all your fans, complete the phrase, my product or service is just like ... and be as crazy as possible, okay? What's it like? Like my book, Brain Glue, it's like a naked guy running through your backyard, okay? What? Gets your attention, okay? So here's Paul Tran. Paul Tran invented an electric razor for man's private areas. Don't want to get too much into this, but okay. And so he wanted to come up with a name that would really grab people's attention. It would explain what the product is, but it would not offend people. He didn't want to be offensive because you're shaving man's private areas, okay? So as a metaphor, his electric razor, what's it like? It's just like a lawnmower. Why don't I call the product the lawnmower? In fact, the lawnmower became a blockbuster, selling hundreds of millions of dollars. I remember being in a store, I think it was Bed Bath & Beyond, and it had said the lawnmower in big letters, had an arrow, and it pointed to the shaver. And it's like, to the razor, it's like, what? That's a lawnmower? And I started reading the text, and it's like, oh, it's for man's private areas. Now, I've never bought it. I want to let you guys know, if I ever bought it, I would not share it with my friends, okay? But I would share the name. I could imagine calling my friend and saying, hey, Joe, guess what I just bought? What'd you buy? I bought the lawnmower. Oh, you have to mow your lawn? No, it's for shaving man's private areas. I can see him laughing and going, you're kidding. Hey, Mary called his girlfriend and was like, guess what James just bought? The lawnmower. The lawnmower? Yeah, he says shave his private areas, you know? But it sticks to the brain. And it's that, you know, when you start laughers are buyers, you don't have to just make people laugh. But calling the product a lawnmower, I mean, who would, and this is one of the things I discovered with Brain Glue, some of these tools require guts, okay? If you're in business and you have no money or a small amount of money, you want to come up with a name that's going to be so resonant with people that even though you don't have a lot of money, you can still make a fortune, you know? And I'll go back to Richard Branson. The guy became a billionaire with the word virgin. I mean, obviously he's good in business, but there are a lot of people who are good. And, you know, he was a kid who had no business experience, but he figured stuff out, and he, you know, I could start a business and everything else. But he recognized I need a name that's going to really resonate with people because I don't have a lot of money for marketing. And just, you know, it became, when you understand the power of these tools, it's mind-blowing. I mean, it's mind-blowing because it works so well. You know, I mean, it's just, I remember I started using it on my own clients. I work with the Small Business Administration. I do coaching for, you know, sometimes groups between 20 and 300, 400, 500 people, okay? And when I share this with them and they actually start applying this, and not everybody applies this because not everybody has the courage, but those who apply this come back and tell me, man, I've crossed $5 million of sales. Man, I can't believe how much money I'm making. Man, I didn't spend I spent almost no money and yet I'm making a fortune. And let me give you this quick example. So how many people spend money to market on social media? Okay, and how many fans do you have? Here's a woman who spent zero and she has more than 5 million fans. Spending zero. What did she do? Well, she's a stay-at-home mom and she's thinking, okay, I want to create a Facebook page. Okay, so let's see. I'm a mom, so why don't I say mommy? Mommy needs time to herself. Mommy needs a rest. If you're a mommy, you know all this, by the way, and moms. I know what mommy needs. Mommy needs vodka. She created the name of her page, Mommy Needs Vodka, okay? Now, I remember this. How did she get so many fans? I remember one of my friends, must be one of her fans or something, and I saw a post on my Facebook page. It was, you know, pretty funny post. It was pretty good. I went, oh, that's pretty good. It's by Mommy Needs Vodka. Mommy Needs Vodka? There's like a naked guy running through my webpage, okay? Mommy Needs Vodka? What the heck's that? Clicked on that, took me to her page. I liked the content on her page, and I became a fan, just like more than 5 million people. Now, how many people out there have fantastic Facebook pages, and do you have 5 million fans by spending zero? She does. It's just when we understand the power of this, we learn how to take a simple product and turn it into a blockbuster of success. I mean, Squatty Potty. It's a stool that you use in the toilet, and yet it became over $100 million of sales were generated. I mean, they became blockbusters of success because of, I mean, it's just, whoever thinks of stuff like that. And yet when you do, it makes your product take off like gangbusters. And it even works with industrial products. I mean, it's amazing. I talk about Squatty Potty. How about Porta Potty? You know, I mean, it works all across the board.
So I think people should go out, get your book, learn all 14 of these tactics. You've given a lot of good evidence here of having the right company and product name can make all the difference in the world. I think a lot of companies, particularly in the B2B area, they don't really put a lot of thought into it. They're almost like the name doesn't matter. But I think all these stories that you've shared proves that, the name really does matter. And it's worth getting into the science of that and putting some thought into it, given everything else that people are investing in the company and their products and marketing it. It makes sense to spend the time on understanding what works, and not only what works, but why it works. And so that's what's really interesting about the science that you shared. So we're just about out of time, but if you want to share, it's on Amazon, Brain Glue, but your website is also...
Well, the easiest way to do it, it's yesbrainglue.com. So if you go to yesbrainglue.com, it has information. But if you just want to check out the book, it's go to braingluebook.com. It'll take you to Amazon, and you can actually check out the book. And Amazon's cool because we've got an audio book, so you can listen to some of the stories there. But you can look at the table of contents and see what the 14 brain triggers are. It's really amazing. And it has, Amazon lets you look at part of it. So if you do braingluebook.com, that'll take you right to Amazon, and you can at least look at what's in the book. Hopefully you'll buy it.
Right.
I think you're going to love having a naked man running through your backyard. Hey.
It's worth it. This is one of my favorite new marketing books. I think people should buy this. It's important when you understand how many millions and literally billions some of the people have made by choosing the right name. So share this episode with your friends. People need to know about this. Also rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us today, James.
Oh, thank you, Eric, for having me. Really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to the Remarkable Marketing Podcast. Our passion is to bring you the marketing rock stars who share stories about the best marketing they've done, how it delivered, and how they handled all the challenges that go along with it. And we do it all in 10 minutes. We only ask two things. First, visit the remarkablemarketing.io website for more great insights. Second, this podcast has been brought to you by the next generation social networking app, Workverse. You can download and use the Workverse app for free to build your professional brand, become a paid expert advisor, and discover the best business events to attend. Download the Workverse app today. See you next time on the Remarkable Marketing Podcast.